Hi, I'm David Eames, and welcome to the On Your Mind podcast. As usual, I'm joined by Owen and Mikey, and today we're going to talk about what might seem an odd subject for mental health. We're going to talk about banter, how people relate to each other, principally how men relate to each other. Mikey, what do you think about banter?
Banter? I don't know. No. I like banter a lot. I've got a best mate and we go back and forth, and I think if anyone read our stream of messages together, it would be seen only for our eyes, really. Not many people would look at it and think they're friends or they're happy people, but we know exactly where it's coming from. And I was saying to you before this, we're talking a bit about banter, and I think banter's earned, and it's through the longevity and the friendship that we've built together, and that makes us in strength be able to have this banter. But I'm a sensitive guy anyway, and at school, and you saw me back in the day, didn't you? I was a big kid. Yeah. Very big kid. Yeah, oh no, don't do that. No banter. No banter. But I really struggled with bullying. I hated it as a kid. I don't have the emotional intelligence to understand what's banter, what's bullying, what it was. So when people would do that, upset me, and then an adult would get involved, or a teacher or whoever, and I was just having a laugh, it's just fun, it's just banter. Well, actually, I was going home crying, or I was going home suicidal at times. Yeah. So it wasn't banter. It was really, really aggressive and painful. So that my nuance with banter there is it's earned. I love having friends that I can have those relationships with, but I'd like people to be very conscious and aware of how they're using it and who they're using it towards.
Yeah, I agree, and I think for me, it's a great leveler for finding your tribe.
Yeah.
A little bit, because for me, I was always struggling because I wasn't academically smart. I didn't have. I'll always make a joke of I can remember all the lyrics to whatever song, or I can run a film off for you without even thinking, but I don't know my times table. But ultimately, they're all superpowers, and I think when it comes to banter, my whole life has been I've just been either trying to make people laugh or find the humour in something, and I think sometimes I'll find that I've invested so much time or energy in with certain people that they weren't the people for me. But I often find that with banter, it often will be the glue that joins us together, because, like I was telling you before, one of my best friends, my best friend that I've known, we went to nursery together, we've done everything together, and literally it's always cutthroat, but with the most amount of love in the world. And it's kind of, it's not, we don't even consider it. Some other people have been sat listening to us talking, and they're gasping or thinking, "Oh, what are they doing?" But really, it's how we communicate. And I think for me, it's the best. But I do know where you're coming from, and it can be the worst. And especially in current society or school, it's extremely difficult to say, "I didn't find it funny." Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And so obviously, it's a difficult one, especially with the way the world is moving at the moment, with how certain people react to certain things. And some people seem desperate to be able to take offence from absolutely anything. And it kind of makes me sad, not necessarily because I'm the one saying the thing they're taking offence to, but they're missing out on a whole spectrum of cool shit because they're busy being offended or afflicted. And I'm not saying that there's not relevance in whatever they're feeling in certain things, but for me, you got to laugh, you got to smile, and you got to find common ground. That it is all about just trying to tag each other all the time.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I think it is in absolute love that you do that. So I'm all for it. I do love it, but I have been on both sides of going too far, and also people thinking that they can work on me, and then instead of me taking the banter, because I can think quite fast, I can get quite nasty, and I'll embarrass you and I'll shame you in front of someone, and then unfortunately that will then, I mean, it ruins relationships, but ultimately when someone thinks, "Oh, I'll get you, you're not going to get me, and I'll get you back," and then
escalates.
Yeah, it can escalate.
There's that saying, isn't there, of offences taken, not given.
Yeah.
No one can offend me.
Yeah.
I might take offence.
Yeah.
The Reginald D. Hunter, is it the American comic? I went doing a routine about how Brits are different. He said, if a Brit's introducing another Brit to a bunch of Americans, they get baffled when he says, this is Nigel, he's a bit of a twat.
Yeah. Yeah. That means we like Nigel.
Brits immediately think, they're good mates then.
Yeah.
And I think it is a way, that men relate to each other when they struggle to show genuine affection.
Yeah.
Genuine emotion. But it's that you've got to know your audience, haven't you?
Yes.
I mean, I love banter, and I love somebody really insulting me. Somebody I care about really having a go at me. It's fun. It's a competition. But it's that thing about punching level or punching up, never punching down.
Yes. I think that punching down, though, isn't necessarily a thing because it's context. Like, if you're at a comedy gig, I think the endless barriers, like, you should be able to joke about anything because it kind of diffuses everything in society, all the horrors that we have to go through and all them feelings. It helps diffuse things. So I think there are no limitations with it, but it is about context.
Yeah, well, that's different. I mean, the context there is a comedy gig.
Yeah,
so people are expecting, perhaps, even if someone goes to see Jimmy Carr, if you're not expecting to be a little bit outraged, then you're in the wrong place.
Because you do see a lot of them articles, don't you? Like, Jimmy Carr said this, and then you find out, you were at his gig. Yeah. What did you want to go and see?
Yeah.
But this is what I'm talking about, people just desperate to be offended, desperate to be afflicted by this thing. And the problem is for me, I'm a big fan of Ricky Gervais, and he's always said, anything can be funny. Which it can. Anything can be funny. I mean, some people take it too far or whatever, but you don't have to keep following that person. You don't have to get on the train with them.
Yeah.
But it's a case that you've seen it and essentially it fine tunes your own banter. Because I mean, I was telling you just before this about a quick story that when I was working with my dad when I was young. I mean, I was 16, 17. My dad's a builder and he's working with a guy from Liverpool, and they were all joking. My dad's a builder, he's a teacher, they're great banter, and I was 16, 17 thinking I could join in. And I made a joke about, the joke was, hey, and I was talking to the guy, hey Bob, what do you call a Scouser in a suit? And he went, go on, and I shouted guilty, because I'd heard this in school as banter, as just jokes, and I thought at the time that was fine.
I'm sorry, I'm a bit offended there about what you're saying about Scouser.
Oh, God,
exactly.
Here we go.
Yeah, exactly.
Here we go.
But they didn't, so he didn't really react how he'd reacted with my dad. Mm-hmm. He didn't carry on smiling and laughing and joking, because the problem was, and this happens a lot that I find with guys, is a lot of people can be the funny guy, but they haven't got a great sense of humour. They can't take a lot that they can give, if you know what I mean. And that's where the levels came in, that I'd sort of gone from beginner to advanced and tried to punch, completely missed. My dad sort of looked at me and was like, dude, really? And I was like, what? Because, I mean, this is what, 1997, 98. The Fast Show was on. All these other, like Harry Enfield. It was completely the norm. I thought I'd landed a crippler, and it was just the worst thing I could have done.
Yeah, and of course the thing is, you're using scripted material as well, rather than spontaneous.
Exactly.
I remember once, somebody saying to me, "Oh, where do you remember all this stuff from?" Well, no, I don't remember it. Yeah. I've just thought of it.
Yeah, exactly. and that is the change. That's where the organic element comes in.
Conjured up in my mind.
Yeah,
but it is an interesting thought process there, because maybe that guy, A, could have been having a bad day for a start,
without a doubt.
And then B, if everyone around him is this Scouse guy and they've all got this perception of Scousers are like this, and he's being a bit serious about it, wanting to prove him wrong, and then he sees a young person, Scousers are all like, it's sort of, what's he going through?
Well, regardless of the content or anything, I think sometimes when someone is a position that they consider in society and life, any sort of chink, any stray bullet that sneaks through that they weren't expecting, and this is where thinking fast, especially with banter, whenever you can think fast and you've got a fast recall, or you can floor someone with something, is all about knowing how to use material to be able to to hit someone rather than it being scripted or pre-written. And I think, like, even my uncle didn't talk to me for like 5 years because I can remember, again, very toxic masculinity. He was always the funny man. He was one of the guys that when he would shake your hand, he'd try and break it.
I get it.
12, 13 and crushing your hand. You think you're a grown man. Fair enough. If this is what you need to do to justify your macho-ness, that's fine. Crack on. And I can remember on Christmas, he was sat in my dad's living room and he had white socks on. White socks on with black shoes. Now, at my school, if you wore white socks with anything, you were in for a kicking. Like, that was not done. That was like the worst of the worst, which, looking back now, is insane. But that was the thing. That was what governed our life. And I can remember looking at him and going, oh, white socks, black shoes, nice one. He was fuming. Beyond. He had no comeback, nothing to say. Collected himself, his kids, left. Didn't talk to me for 5 years. Maybe more. And you're like, there's a much bigger issue there because he's been riding me like a Skegness donkey for the whole day. And then I've given him one little one back, and it's just that.
Yeah.
It is ego. It's a bruised ego.
It is ego.
He knew anything he would have said back, he would have got nasty and malicious. And obviously, unfortunately, he couldn't have crushed my hand because he wasn't shaking my hand to leave that day. But it's a strange one.
Yeah.
I do have a thought on, we give a lot on giving out banter, but the receiving of banter, everything that we've done in these podcasts, that working on yourself and being self-aware and then learning to love yourself, I'd have to say, if you can get, because now, I mean, look at me, I still get banter thrown at me. I look like I've been thrown out of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and a wannabe or whatever, but I also really love myself now. Like, I've got bald hair. I'm not in my shape quite, but I love them.
It's a bald head.
Bald hair.
Hair is not bald, my man.
No hair.
I tricked myself. There's always, people can always find flaw. And working with kids, you're always going to get that. But I know who I am. I know who my people are. And I've got an amazing partner. I'm just content in my life. So anything coming my way, and I've been working on my stuff, I just feel resilient to it. Nothing really gets me. So for people who are quite easily offended, I think it is that working on yourself process that you need to really go through. And if it's like that the truth hurts, well, you're saying that is the truth then. If they call you a thing, yeah, that's hurt me because it's real. But you don't have to look at it in that way.
There needs to be a sensitivity to it. So the golden rule is supposedly do unto others as you would be done by. But let's rewrite that because I think that's wrong.
I do.
Do unto others as they would be done by.
I heard that in a Matthew McConaughey thing. It was awesome.
And it's that, banter's fun between people who know what it is.
Yeah.
And there's a secure relationship there. So there's love behind it.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of fun. But for some people, it can be absolutely crushing.
I love that you said that. It's a really good, it's the truth, that is. Because I got the golden rule on my arm, treat others as you wish to be treated. And then when I heard that down the line, I thought, oh, that's
How about on your
better.
other arm?
Yeah. No, well, it's not that the words aren't there. It's just all the religious symbols.
Just put an asterisk.
Yeah. But that's kind of, it's supposed to be the text within all religious texts. It's saying the same thing in some way.
Yeah.
But I do believe that's wrong.
But I think that's the leveler that I was referring to. That it's not necessarily that I'll kick the door in on a family event and start abusing people. But there's a certain corner that you'll gravitate to, or there's certain people that you're not seeing for a while. But you always you find your tribe, essentially in my experience, through humour. And it's not necessarily just making mistakes because you've upset your grandma to the point where she won't talk to you. But it's respect, and you know what you can get away with, what you can't get away with, and it's one of them. It's like ultimately it's around the kids. I am myself, and I've not got Tourette's, but I swear, and I'm very expressive, and all the rest of it. And the girls both know that that's not right. You shouldn't do that. But because they hear it, I never hear them swear, and they just know that's the norm. That's life, and that is the big wide world where they've got other friends that will come over, and obviously I have to watch my P's and Q's because they've got friends around and all the rest of it, and I'm not encouraging them to swear, but it's one of them where you'll hear other people and how they act and how they are, and we did this and it was a bit of a mess up, wasn't it? And like really softly, and the problem is I've experienced it myself as a kid, growing up, knowing that what I shouldn't do and when it's okay to do it. And then we had neighbours that basically were extremely religious. They didn't have a television. They weren't allowed to watch any sort of horror film or even the Michael Jackson History album. It was all folded over. You couldn't see the Thriller. They weren't allowed toy guns, anything. And when they both hit 16, 17, they went off the rails. I mean, lovely lads, amazing lads now, and all good, but just this really condensing someone at the point when they should have been experienced a few things and finding things.
They've never learned how to maintain their own boundaries.
And this is it. Yeah, and the problem is when you've been having banter with your friends from when you're like 9, 10, and then you only get into the pool when you're 16, 17, someone cuts you down with something, and unfortunately it can send you one of two ways. And I think that's why it's so important that, well, everything's funny, everything's humour, and I think for me, that's how I get through pretty much anything. It's just the way I have to do it.
You've got to think about, like you want to be fighting in your own weight division.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And maybe you can step up a weight or two, you know, but you might get punched.
Yeah. Mate, yeah, trust me.
But you might learn something from that too.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the times you can actually validate other people as well by being the way you are because they haven't got the confidence to do it. Does that make sense? Like, literally, I've done a couple of eulogies at funerals recently. Same family. It was my wife's auntie, and it was also my wife's grandma. And it just so happened that my wife's auntie, who I've spoken about before, and I'm really, really close to her, I was actually meant to be in Vegas. I was actually meant to be at the UFC when it was a massive fight. I was meant to be over there for 10, 12 days. And she loved the UFC. She loved the fact that I was a part of this thing that I love, and it was fantastic. And she passed away. I then made the offer to do the eulogy, and it just so happened it fell on that weekend. So I had a room full of people in this beautiful creme, and the first thing I did was went over, knocked on the coffin, said, "Thanks a lot, Nick. I should be in Vegas." To which enough people found it hilarious because they knew how we were, but there were some old school people that were very. I mean, I pulled it back by being really sincere and lovely in the reading, but there were other little bits that I could hit her as well with because I knew that if she was watching, she would want me to be me to be able to deliver this rather than the robot that would emotionally break down.
It's a good anecdote.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a good anecdote because even for what we've been talking about, like treat others as they wish to be treated, it's interesting because you've got half a room that would have enjoyed that and half a room that wouldn't. So you can't always treat everyone as they wish to be treated to some degree.
No, but that's speaking to a group, which is again a different context, isn't it? Yeah. Because like banter between two people, that can get really personal.
Yeah.
Whereas, it can bounce off you a bit. I mean, a lot of the people taking offence these days are taking offence on behalf of someone else.
Yeah.
And that other group who are supposedly oppressed are going, well, hang on, we can take care of ourselves here.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yes.
Virtue signalling stuff.
Yeah. I saw a video of a guy, and he was dressed in a Mexican poncho and a sombrero, and he had a stick-on moustache. And he went to a university in America, and he was saying, "Is this offensive?" And he was getting a massive, convoluted breakdown that was so flouncy. There was no real substance to it, but like, "Oh no, specifically because you're doing this, you're doing that." And everyone he met was like, "No." He went to Mexico and interviewed like the same amount of people, and they're like, "It's amazing. Yeah, I'm so glad you like it. That's the best. I love it." And obviously, it could be set up, it could be nonsense, but the problem is just see what people actually think before you start being offended for them. And it's just a waste of energy.
So maybe, banter can work if we are being our authentic selves and doing it from a sense of love rather than a sense of wanting to hurt the other person.
Yes.
You're doing it for sort of comedic exploration between the two of you.
Yeah.
It's an exchange. It's a 1-2.
Yeah.
And you're playing in a handicapped arena, where you're matched up, or maybe you adjust your game a little bit depending on who you're playing with.
Yeah.
So I love you two guys, but I'm not going to hit you, Mikey, as hard as I hit Owen.
Go on.
Well, Banter,
Don't worry, I've heard them all.
It's ready. He's brewing them.
no, it's not. But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do.
It's a legacy.
Completely,
Of course, it's a legacy that grows together, because the stuff that we say to each other now, if we'd have said when we first met, we would have ended up fighting.
Yeah, we've known each other, 15, 16 years now. I've only known you, for about a year, Mikey, and it's that you build the relationship. But it's you got to have the love behind it, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, that's another element of giving it. But I said something before on taking banter and working on self, but another element of when you're trying to receive banter, you are okay to just say, lads, I can't really do it today. There's too much surmounting, too much in my mind. I'm not feeling banter. And I think having that strength to say, not today if you're all right with it or whatever, that's cool too, and have that discussion.
Yeah, and I think you find that when you've got the relationship with the people that you have the most banter with, there can be times where I've had a really stressful Friday, just for argument's sake. Perfect, easy example. I've had a terrible Friday. For whatever reason, something's cracked off, something's busy, whatever, and I'll come onto their PlayStation, speak to David, and he'll hit me with something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh.
I needed that. Yeah, I'm
and
the
problem
same,
is,
really. Yeah.
I know I can't bite, because that's losing. I can't react, because that's losing. But ultimately, David will then kind of tune in quite quickly to go, everything all right?
Yeah.
And that's the difference, especially with group. When you're feeling like you're the butt of the joke or something else, it's more difficult to say, I don't really want to be involved in this. Whereas when you can tell, I was speaking to one of our friends the other day, and essentially he said, I was getting really mad last night. I was getting really mad. And he could laugh at himself the next day, but he knew that what he was doing was, it was only ammo for the next week.
Yeah.
Because as much you could say that you're the most upset and we really did this, but then the week after, you're right this week. You're going to be all right. Sure.
Yeah.
And it comes into the little cachet of insults that you've got, and it just keeps growing. Yeah. I think one of the main things that I think is a danger with banter is when people use it to excuse something else, especially in relationships and stuff. Oh, I was only playing. It was only a joke. I was only having banter. And for me, I'm the most loyal person, and I just want everyone to be happy. So if you wanted me now to walk to Glasgow to pick you up a bottle of milk, and you said to me, I'd like you to do, I'd just do it. It's not a problem. But when you get the reverse psychology banter of, oh, well, if you only do that, and especially in relationships and stuff.
Yeah.
I was only joking. And it's like, well, you
manipulation.
Weren't. I know you weren't joking. And I'm very fortunate to have a relationship with Stacey where we've obviously known each other for a long time, so we can be quite open. Or very open. But I have had people before when they try and do that manipulating thing, and they try and put it across as banter, where ultimately they're actually being a bit of a shithouse, and they're trying to take advantage, and I don't like that.
I'm trying to. This is something that I'm fathoming here, because I when I was quite lonely, I had one job. It was working on a building site, but just with one other builder, so he did everything, and came home. And my mum, and the way them two would talk about me was just, and it was the same thing though, and I was like, are they corresponding?
Yeah.
Because it was just everyone they saw that came onto the farm or came onto here, their banter or whatever it was is like, oh, he's just a dumb cunt.
Yeah, well, that's not banter.
Yeah.
That is absolutely not banter. That's just bullying.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying. But in their minds, and they were going, somebody had come and they're trying to make them laugh, and give it in. And have you seen Game of Thrones? Is it that guy that gets turned into the little slave thing? What was his name? Got his thingy cut off. Winky.
You know Game of Thrones better than anyone. What's his name? The one who gets his tallywhacker cut off.
Oh yes, indeed, I do know.
But for about a year, I'm not this person anymore. But I lived like him. I was so submissive.
Theon.
That's it.
Theon,
yeah.
Theon. Yeah.
What you find though is that because they've not been taught banter, they've been bullied themselves.
Yeah.
Would you say?
Yeah. Do you know what that
is why then? And that's that masculine toxic.
For the builder that I'm thinking of, I saw his family, I saw everyone. I thought, oh God, bless you. You must have been through some turbulence.
Yeah.
I get that.
And bullying does happen on a Friday night. Owen's talking about Friday night. That they all bully me.
Yeah.
They all pick on me. But hey, I'm the envelope. An elephant, just be envelope.
Perfect.
Perfect.
You're gonna get that later.
Banter yourself.
Yeah.
So I'm the envelope in the room, just mosquitoes trying to attack me.
Yeah,
You know.
exactly. But
that's good. Yeah. That's good.
I think, bullying is such a vile thing because it is disguised with. It's meant to be disguised with good intent. That's what they're trying to do. But really, it's so toxic. And I'll never forget, because I was bullied and it was horrible. And it was one of those things that I'll never forget being about 16. And my brothers were all about, but they were 1 7, 1 8 and 1 10 years younger than me. And we just so happened to go to a birthday party at, I think it was a McDonald's birthday party back in the day. And one of the lads I went to school with, who was a really nasty bully, was there. And for whatever reason, one of the families that were there, he went along with. I was another one of the families that was there. And so we were like, oh, well, I don't normally see you in this environment. And we got on really well because there was just the two of us. There was no other people to justify, to shine, to do anything. There was no ladder to climb to be like the big dog or whatever. And we actually got on really well. And I kind of made a point in my brain then when I thought, when I have kids, if they're being bullied, I'll invite them round. And not to lock them in the shed and intimidate them, but more to get my kids to see where they're coming from, or just to, like, get them on a common ground in some sort of way. And I have done it in the past where, like, even with my little brother, when he was at senior school and I'd left, I'd arranged play dates because I was being bullied by such and such. And I was like, well, it's because they don't know you, dude. Let's get you one-on-one. And then it just starts new friendships. But that does mean that some people have to lower guards and stuff. But it's interesting how, because bullying is so personal to that person, and ultimately they don't know why they're doing it to someone else. It's a whole, in my opinion, like, re-education of themselves to realise that they're the problem. Do you know what I mean? And it's just, when it's disguised as banter, you can tell when someone doesn't know what they're doing, because it's like when you're playing snowball fights and someone throws a rock at you, you're like, dude, you've not got the number.
That's such a good example.
You know what I mean? Exactly. And if you're landing a bit of banter and the other person's hurt by it, you're playing the wrong game.
Yeah.
You know.
Exactly.
As I told you guys before we started, you know, that my father was very good at it, but much slower at it than I was.
Yeah.
I mean, I was 25 when he died, so I never got to play him as a mature man. But I'd hit him half a dozen times, and then he'd just floor me with one.
Huh.
Yeah.
And there's an occasion has been when I've got on my knees in the pub and just kissed his hand. Because just admiring the skill.
Oh, wow.
And that's from experience.
Yeah.
And you know what it's like, especially even if you watch a video of yourself in like from years ago, you think, what did I even know? But at the time you think you know everything. And it often takes that type of person just to pull you down a little bit and just remind you and put you back online.
It's funny, the friends you've got that you know are so good at banter, and then you have to pre-warn them and prep them before you meet them with somebody else. Like, I went to New Zealand with Chrissy, and we were a year into the relationship, and she's a lot of fun, Chrissy. Got a great mind about her, but one of the things was she would take things quite serious, or just had this threshold where enough was enough, and I knew it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no, you're going to go and meet my best mate in another country. We're going to be sat in a car for 6 hours together. Yeah. And his dad's like this big Yorkshireman, and just everything's a joke. Yeah. And that's how he sort of conducts it. So I let it brew. I saw when enough was enough, and I had like a little bit of a, right, okay, guys, shall we do this now?
Yeah, I had a similar thing, but I found myself that I was trying to backseat drive too much. And it came down to when I first got together, and I almost gave my dad a list of what he can and can't do. And my dad's very much like me, and he's very open, and he's what you see is what you get. Beautiful guy. And he's
very much like you, beautiful guy.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh.
And he listened to everything I said, and he took it all on. He didn't get mad, didn't get upset, and he said, "Hey, do you think Stacey's talking to her dad about what he can and can't say to you?" And I went, "What?" He went, no, just wondering. Do you think Stacey's currently talking to her dad, letting him know what's okay, what's not, what's this, what's that? And I went, well, no. He went, do you reckon I'll be all right? Mm. And from then on, as much as what you're saying, I know that there's essentially a tape has been lit and you're just waiting for it to go off.
Yeah.
That's their path.
Yeah.
And I kind of, from that point, I was just like, do you know what? I can't necessarily get involved because if they can't see it themselves.
Yeah.
And it's all meant in love, especially with my dad. Like Stacey had a baptism of fire because she had my dad, my uncle, all these other people. And it's just jokes and just a rip all the time. But she survived it all. And it made her super tough. And honestly, her life experience now, no one can rock her in any way, shape or form. And I think that's partly
from...
a good attitude.
I like that. It's
coming out of this
shell. Develop from. And,
for real.
Yeah.
And again, it hones the tribe. This is what I was saying from the very get-go. This is the level of your tribe. Because if Chrissy met that guy and didn't have the same connection you had with, that's fine. It just doesn't mean that you're going to do the same stuff together, and that's also fine.
I suppose that in the car, I just need to make sure it is symbiotic in the term of if it was me and Jagger just on Chrissy all the time, and have you seen Family Guy? Like, shut up, Meg.
Yeah.
Shut up, Meg. Like, it needs to be all of us.
But if Chrissy would have exploded and just gone absolutely mental after like 3 hours, there would never have been an issue ever again. There would have been enough banter, and he would have known where his level was. But because someone's pre-warning, it's like,
or you can control it just with an ouch or even a raised eyebrow.
Yeah.
There's other signalling going on. It is communicating. It's not just performance.
Yeah.
So here's a question for you guys. And we enjoy banter. We recognise that where appropriate and sometimes not appropriate.
Yeah.
But are we using it as a substitution for being unable to talk about our feelings?
100%. 1,000,000%, without a doubt. It's especially in this way. Like, it's wonderful that you see that people are talking about male problems and male suicide rates, and it's okay to talk, it's all right to cry, because I'm not saying the damage is done, but what you see from what we've grown up with, what you've grown up with, that it's all off the table. It's not okay. I mean, I can remember the amount of jobs I've been in, and someone will go, he's off with stress. And then another derogatory term that we give him a P or F at the end of it. And I'm like, dude, like, the guy's just gone through and yes, absolutely, it is how we deal with our deepest, darkest feelings. And I can't thank you enough for letting me give you banter to get it off my chest. And I know that you appreciate it with me, and all the people that I ever interact with in that way, I would be half the person without them. But I think it is slowly coming to the point where it's all right to talk a bit more.
Well, we banter, but we talk as well.
Yeah.
And earlier today, Mikey, you were talking about things, and it's that. So it can't just be banter, can it?
That's it.
It's a recreational activity.
It breaks a wall. I think it breaks a wall because if you talk sincerely for longer than 5 minutes without having a bit of a dig, then like an alarm will start going off.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you can be sincere and you're almost on the edge of tears, then someone will get you on, okay, that brings you back. And then again, and I think it's a softer introduction to expressing how something makes you feel.
Comedy is an essential thing. I mean, I use it quite a lot in my counselling work. Not, when a client's crying in front of me.
Yeah, start playing a Billy Connolly DVD.
But, it might be surprising how much we laugh with one another because, life is kind of ridiculous. We're all a bit ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it can just diffuse things. It can actually reveal more emotion if you've got a bit of comedy in it as well.
Oh, mate.
I've been in, some circles before with, people that are gurus or modernised gurus or spiritualists, and I think this isn't what I want. This isn't the revolution mind that I want. It's just so drab and grey and serious. I'm like, where's the fun in that? Yeah. Where's the wacky?
Mate,
where's the wonder?
You've got to laugh at whatever you can.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if you can look back on any of the arguments you've had with any of your partners or friends or anything, the little silly things, the day in, day out things, and still be mad about it and not find the funny side, then it's ridiculous. Very quick story. When we first bought our house, we had a spare bedroom. and it was always set up for people to stop over. And for whatever reason, I'd upset Stace. Normal sort of stuff. And she was like, right, I'm going in the spare room. And I was like, no problem. So off she went and got in the spare room. So I went and got in with her. And I was the most annoying prick. I was just messing. I was just, oh, come on. So then she went, right, I'm going to go and get in our bed. I was like, nice one. That's where I wanted to sleep, really. And before you know it, we were both laughing. Because that's the only way I can deal. Because, look, whatever's happened, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
But it was more a case, I knew if I could crack her, if I could just break that, I'm so cross, and I will tell you why I'm cross. And so I went and got in bed with her in the wrong room. And then that way, now she's fuming, but she's kind of seeing that she's being ridiculous.
Yeah.
I don't have to tell her she's being ridiculous, and I don't have to say I'm being a prick. But at the same time, we worked it out. And it was because we can laugh. And I think it's more a case of just, if you can, you should.
Yeah, I think early on in our relationship, I did something that upset you.
Oh, dude, I could have killed you.
And then I just went and grinned at you till you cracked.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear this one.
It doesn't really matter what it is.
Just for me
But
later.
but it's
I
really
can tell you, but yeah, it still bubbles a little bit. It still gets
I'm
me a little
having
bit.
that. Like, oh, mate,
Yeah.
brilliant.
And it is. And I think whenever you can make that eye contact with someone, like literally this morning, we've got golden apple snails at the minute that Libby's got. 2 little golden apple snails, and they've laid eggs. And unfortunately, the eggs have dropped into the tank, which means they're not going to hatch. Which, for my youngest, she is the most caring, kind, considerate, thoughtful. She names every animal, every insect. She's just adorable. So obviously, to have these, knowing that she's going to get snail babies, is the best thing in the world. And Stace went to tell her, and because she's got such a nervous energy, she went, Libby, I've got something to tell you about the snail, and couldn't hold it together. Was laughing about the fact that the snail baby she thought she was going to get, and now no more. And she even said, I didn't know what to do. I'm trying to hide behind my hand. And I said, look, it is what it is. You've got to own it. You just got to grab it. And it's one of them things. And that's it. And what can you do?
Be authentic.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. Because that is the key, isn't it? I think the key to all relations. I see it the key to my work as a therapist is that if I can be authentic with my clients, almost nothing else matters. Yeah. Because that allows other people to talk, to explore stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, one of our mutual friends said to me the other day, I was on a phone call with them, and obviously I worked with them for 10 years. And he said, whenever he hears me on a podcast, it feels like we're sat next to each other again. And he kind of, he misses what we had at the time without knowing that he was ever going to miss it, because obviously I used to annoy him. So he said he really appreciates it, but he says, you don't really care what you say. And I was like, well, I do care what I say, because I want the stories to come across, but they're just stories. It's just experience, and the meaning of life, in my opinion, is making memories and having that. And if someone's upset me and I tell that story, it's only how I've interpreted what's happened. It doesn't necessarily mean the person's a bad person. Most of them are, but it's more a case of it's just sharing. And if I can make you laugh with a story about me growing up, or me and Stace, or whoever, that's the goal. That's good. Do you know what I mean? And because you can ask me any of the stories I've ever told you to retell them again, and they'll be the same, because there's no I'm not going to lie about it. I don't have to make stuff up.
Because different day, same old shit, you know.
Exactly. And I think the authenticity comes across, and it's important, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. So, I don't know, it's a relatively short session today, I think, but I think we've kind of covered that.
It'll be one that I go and revisit that, because it is a good conversation. It's a nice, gentle reminder.
Yeah.
I think it's important, because it was a nice balance of, when everything's just so heavy, humour can really alleviate that. But, as you said, sometimes you do need to have your little elements of, can I be serious here, and just have a bit of a moment and have a talk?
Yeah.
And we can't just always be on banter form. I've seen it. I think it's in a Ricky Gervais one. There's a guy, it's on extras, but this guy's just constantly trying to bring in the fun. It's like, not warranted right now.
No. Everything he does, look at Afterlife. Everything he does, I think he's already nailed it. Without the life experience of most people with children and all the rest, he's not even married. He's not got kids, but he seems to already be plugged in from a working man's upbringing and working man's life to then see. He seems to see the world a lot clearer than a lot of other people.
He's a great storyteller and understands emotion.
Yeah. So, if we want to wrap things up then, banter has its place. but it's just another tool to use. We're all doomed to die alone in a godless, meaningless universe. So we might as well have a giggle about it. Thank you. Goodbye.
I love that. That was the best.
It's going to trigger a few people.